Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. It's August the 4th and we are live here on the Pace Network's YouTube channel and our Facebook pages. And don't forget, we're also podcasted at paceradio.net. Good morning, Glenn. How are you doing today?
Absolutely great. Al, how are you?
Not too bad. A little tired. It was, just didn't get the sleep that I like to get sometimes. And last night was one of those.
I do that every night almost.
Yeah. And yourself, how you been doing?
I've been doing great. Working a lot.
Yeah. How's the garage coming?
It's almost done. It should be done. I'm hoping by the end of the day. We're going to find out.
Oh.
Yeah.
End of the day. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Today in the news, we're going to be talking about, some important letters. We've got some information on some cannabis that's being destroyed. We've got, let's see what else. We got some stuff on some lounges and some places that got lounges before we do. We've been legal here in Canada for over 3 years, and we do only have lounges. So, and we got some important psilocybin news as well in our mushy moment. Make sure you stay tuned for that as well. So, first up, Glenn. The news says in CTV that Victoria calls on feds to allow high-dose THC products at the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club.
And Mayor Lisa, or Victoria Mayor Lisa Helps, has penned a letter to Health Canada calling on the federal government to grant the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club an exemption from the products it sells to its members, or for the products it sells. The VCBC has long been seeking an exemption from the federal and provincial governments to sell edible cannabis products with THC levels higher than the legal limit of 10 milligrams, and it's probably about time.
It sure is. The club, which has been operating since 1996, says many of its members use high-dose THC products to manage chronic pain, cancer, or other ailments. The VCBC adds that members find the cost of legal products at other dispensaries are prohibitively expensive, especially if they have been with the club for a long time.
And on Thursday, Help said the city supported VCBC's call for an exemption. She reiterated that the city has supported the exemption back in 2020 when another legal battle was launched by the club. Over more than 2 decades of operations in Vancouver, the management, staff, and board of directors of the VCBC have proven their commitment to patients and to our community, wrote Helps. The City of Victoria is prepared to do its part to ensure that the club can successfully transition into the legalized cannabis system as soon as possible.
Like, Glenn, how often do you ever hear about anything along that line of a city that's coming out in support that law enforcement considers,
almost everything I ever hear is completely the opposite. They don't want anything to do with you. They want you out of their city or out of their town. They don't want clubs. Right. They don't want stores, nothing. So it's kind of refreshing.
It is. It is refreshing to see that getting the support from the city. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Health Canada has been, I'll back up there. The Canadian Institute of Substance Use Research has also voiced its support for the VCBC and its use of high-dose THC products, saying that cannabis can be used to help reduce or provide an alternative to opioid use, especially as overdose deaths climb in BC. The center wrote back in March, they said that we urgently call on Health Canada to grant the exception requested by the VCBC and dedicate resources to help develop a plan that meets the needs of people who consume cannabis for therapeutic purposes.
And we also see an urgent need to support rather than punish community-based compassion clubs, buyers clubs, and dispensaries that do not have the resourcing, staffing, time, and expertise to fulfill all requirements under the Cannabis Act. And we've been saying this for a long time now. It's too onerous on the clubs and on anything to do with cannabis. It's crazy. Red tape.
Yeah,
Health Canada sorry, Al.
Health Canada has been reviewing the club's request for an exemption since April. The VCBC says no deadline has been set for when that review may be complete.
If the club's application for an exemption is rejected, the club says it will challenge the decision in court. The Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club is also facing more than $6 million in fines from the provincial government under the Cannabis Control and Licensing Act, which were handed out in February. The process for challenging those fines is in its early stages. And I might say if they win this thing, those fines might go away.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope they do, because, we've had Ted on the Pace Radio show many times, and patience. It's sad to see what that they've got these $6.5 million worth of fines levied between Ted and the club. That's why we run a promo here, in order for people to be able to, if they want to help out, so that they can do that. And it's good to see that the city of Vancouver is supporting them.
At least we have some level of government support.
That's got to be key.
Yeah.
It's
a first as far as I know. At least for a big government. We're not talking a little town here of 1,000 people. We're talking a big government here. Big difference.
Correct. Yes, exactly. One of the largest cities in the country, is saying to the government that, hey, we support these guys. Give them the license. Give them the exception. Allow them to do
I wish we heard this more.
Yeah, exactly. All right, on to our next story. And this one comes to us from MJ Biz Daily. Headline says, the Canadian growers destroyed a record 425 million grams of cannabis last year.
Wow.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Canadian licensed producers destroyed 872,443,000 grams, which is 961 tons of unsold dried cannabis between 2018 and 2021, significantly more than they were able to sell. So they're destroying more than they can sell.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a great graph here that shows it over the years, the amounts, and they're just increasing over the years.
Like that. Jesus Christ. Yeah, in 2 years, it's more than doubled.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's 26% of all their crops now. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Canadian licensed producers have destroyed a growing amount of cannabis every year since adult use legalization, nearly 4 years ago, with 2021's record quantity far exceeding the products sold that year, an MJ Biz Daily analysis has found. The latest data signals that some Canadian mass producers might need to further rein in output to bring it further in line with forecasted sales after years of trying to right-size capacity so they're not growing more than they're able to sell.
Now, aren't they able to turn this into other products?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
See,
but there are certain things that they have to meet when they're.
But they're destroying more than they're selling, and that's a backward system. It can't hold up that way.
No, I know. Yeah, well, and it's at one time they had limited the amount of producers that they were going to have, and then they've opened it all up. Like I don't know, there's hundreds and hundreds of them. At one time there was only going to be, well, originally I was part of the one. There was only one.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think last I heard it was somewhere around 600 or something. I'm not even sure what. I lost count. So it's just
wow. All told, Canada's federally licensed cannabis producers destroyed a record 425 million grams, or 468 tons of unsold, unpackaged dried cannabis last year, according to Health Canada data provided by MJ Biz Daily. Now, I got one more question. If they're destroying 468 tons, wouldn't it be better to put it on sale and say, okay, instead of it being $150 an ounce now, it's $120 and sell it? Unless this is something wrong with this cannabis.
Well, let's read on. Maybe some of it is.
Last year's total was up more than 50% from 279 million grams of dried cannabis that was destroyed in 2020. LPs destroyed 155 million grams in 2019. And the Seattle-based analytics firm Headset estimates that sales of dried cannabis and pre-rolls amounted to 293 million grams last year in 4 key provinces, indicating destroyed inventory again exceeded sold production.
Ah, holy smokes. Headset monitor sales in Alberta, BC, Ontario, and Saskatchewan, which together account for approximately 3/4 of all legal sales of recreational products in Canada, in addition to the destruction of unpackaged dried cannabis. This is in addition to that, okay?
Yeah.
More than 7 million packaged products across the country were sent for destruction in 2021, according
Why?
to the Health Canada data. And so that's on top of that. Geez.
I'm assuming this 7 million package, there's something wrong with it. Because why would they destroy prepackaged stuff? It's already ready for sale.
Yeah, I know what you
You know,
mean.
is there something in it there's not supposed to be, or their testing wasn't proper, or the packaging is improper, something? Quantities of destroyed
Something's going
cannabis
on.
include 3,576 packages of dried cannabis, 1,118,000 packages of extracts, including vapes, 2,421,000 packages of edibles, including beverages, and 15,000 packages of topicals. Headset tracked cannabis sales of 104 million packaged units in 2021, indicating that unlike unpackaged dry cannabis, sales of packaged merchandise far exceeded the amount that was destroyed.
The Health Canada data does not include the weight of the packaged production. Okay, just so everybody's wondering. Destruction has been growing in Canada, cannabis industry, after the largest producers funded and built out more production capacity than the industry needed after the launch of recreational sales in 2018. Most of the biggest greenhouse transactions led to direct real estate losses worth millions of dollars and balance sheet adjustments worth billions of dollars in inventory and other asset write-downs, previous MJBiz's daily reporting has found.
Cannabis producers, in fact, sold less than 20% of their production between legalization in 2018 and the end of 2020. Since 2018,
Sold less than
less.
Sold less than 20.
That's because we were talking about those huge farms and huge buildings they built that were way too big for what they needed.
Yeah, I guess so.
Since 2018,
okay, keep going.
900 million grams of unpackaged dried cannabis has been destroyed by licensed producers because of overproduction and quality issues. A weight of approximately equal to 650 Toyota Prius cars. The figure would easily pass the 1 billion gram mark when destroyed packaged cannabis is accounted for.
Yeah.
1 billion grams.
Yeah. Billion grams.
And there is something here that says quality issues. So I'm wondering if that's like pesticides or something in there, right?
Well, yeah.
In some of it.
Stuart Maxwell, a cannabis crop consultant based in BC, said some large producers might be putting off destruction to make their balance sheets look better than they really are. He says that I think some of the larger producers just want cannabis in the inventories. Even if they never sell it, it still looks good on their books to have assets. A lot of producers aren't destroying products when it's ready to be destroyed, even though it's no longer marketable, he says.
So why is it not marketable? Because it's an older cannabis product?
Well, I don't know of any expiry date. I haven't really looked into the legal cannabis to see if they even put an expiry date or best before dates on them. My thing is in beverages and not the buds themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm thinking there's obviously there's bad gardens. Gardens go powdery mildew in them.
Yeah.
Fails testing concerns, and who knows what else. Like
it sounds like some of this is that, but most of it sounds like it's good product. Just it's a year old or something.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Maybe not quality. Yeah. So keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Keep reading.
Across all product categories in Canada, the amount of packaged products sitting in corporate inventories far exceeds the amount of packaged merchandise that is sold. The imbalance indicates that high levels of inventory destruction could continue for some time. In December, for instance, 14 million packaged units of extracts were stashed in inventories of producers, wholesalers, and retailers. In the same month, sales amounted to less than 3 million units in recreational and medical channels. They had 14 million in inventory, but they only sold 3 million at that time.
Yeah, really, eh?
Wow.
Roughly 19 million units of cannabis edibles were destroyed and ready for sale in December. Only about 4 million units were sold, according to the data. Cannabis topicals inventory reached 550,000 units compared to the sales of 65,000. Meanwhile, roughly 36 billion packaged units of dried cannabis were in inventory that month, with sales reaching 9.6 million units. Wow, holy shit, eh?
Yeah, and the imbalance is primarily with licensed producers, not wholesalers or retailers, the data suggests. Maxwell warned that the overproduction will make it life difficult for most new entrants into the industry. I'm a crop consultant. I make my living teaching people how to grow cannabis. But quite often, my first meeting is very uncomfortable, he said. A majority of the time, I'm telling people, I'm sorry, but you're going to fail. And they usually don't hire me when I tell them that, but it's the reality if you're just getting in an industry right now.
He continues to say that the odds are, even if you are a good actor and you have sustainable financial assets behind you, the numbers are not good for anyone because of these issues. Oversupply. Cannabis can't find its real price point. One of the companies navigating Canada's tumultuous cannabis market better than some of its larger competitors is Cultivator Organogram Holdings, and they're down by you, Glenn.
Yep. New Brunswick-based company has managed to grow its overall market share and sales, while most of its main rivals have seen their sales crash and write-downs skyrocket over the same period. A recent report by New York-based financial services firm Cowen noted that some organogram rivals experienced sales declines upwards of 39% year over year in the second quarter of this year. Organogram sales, by contrast, rose by 60%. How?
Yeah. They say that their CEO said part of the reason is that Organogram sells most of what it produces, avoiding the massive destruction and write-down facing larger competitors. And he says in an interview, they say in an interview that number one, Organogram built our capacity over time. We had mistakes too, but in the last couple of years, we've been producing based on our sales forecast.
So they're producing
they
what
said
they
not
can sell.
overproducing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're basing it on that. They're not trying to grow large and then hopefully sell it all.
Yeah.
They're ramping up.
Yeah. Goldenberg said, not overproducing requires a deep understanding of what your customers want to buy and why. Like anything else, it's all about making sure you're producing what a consumer wants, she said. Quality is becoming the determining factor. She said markets are stabilizing enough to make accurate forecasts, and you shouldn't have massive amounts to write off. You should be working with the provinces on making sure you have an optimized product lineup.
Yeah. Cannabis is an agricultural product, she says. So consumers don't want something that's 6 months to 2 years old. And you got that right. Right on the nose there. They say that being able to deliver fresh products boils down to three factors: forecast accuracy, measured investments in inventory, and customer service. And goes on to say, in my whole career, not specific to cannabis, it is always finding that balance between forecast and accuracy and investment in inventory and customer service levels. You have to optimize those three factors.
And our Organogram, she said, is sitting on about 3 weeks of inventory. That is critical to our process, she said. We look at what we need and we produce accordingly. And maybe some other people should take note of that.
Yeah, because they seem to have done it the right way, build it up instead of like look at Aurora. They've got those great big huge automated warehouses that um, they didn't they ended up selling and losing a bunch of money on.
I don't think I think this Organigram started out as a much smaller company with much smaller capital than those other companies did.
Oh yeah, they
That
also have
probably helped them in the long run a little bit, you know.
yeah. Well, they've had some turbulence along the way. Let's just say, okay.
Everybody has.
Yeah, they've had some turbulence, but obviously, if their sales are going up, then that's their past.
Well,
And
they were saying they have 3 weeks storage, 3 weeks of what they're selling. But we were just reading that story where people literally have 3 times what they're going to sell in a year sitting in a warehouse.
sitting in a warehouse, exactly. Just might be destroyed. All right, on to the next story. This one's from Strachan. Headline says industry happy with next steps towards new sales channels for CBD, but long wait expected for any regulation changes. I bet there is a super long wait.
There's always a long way. Many in and outside of the cannabis industry say recent recommendations from a government committee looking at new sales channels for some CBD products is a welcome next step in a long process. The proposed changes come from Health Canada's recently released report of the Science Advisory Committee on Health Products Containing Cannabis. The report includes several recommendations for the federal regulator to consider, namely allowing certain limited CBD products to be sold by pharmacists as well as veterinarians. Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. But you can't even get the review done, for God's sakes. Never mind doing that. How those changes will be made, if at all, into final regulatory changes still remains to be seen, but the release of the long-awaited report is a welcome next step in what will likely still be a year or more in the making. I completely agree there. Now, according to Deepak Ananan, he says that I'm not expecting CBD products to be available over the counter for at least another year and a half, if not longer. He says nobody gets to get too excited by it, but it's a big step, and he's right.
Yeah. This timeline continues, Anand, is because Health Canada will likely still need to engage in their own public and stakeholder consultation process for a change to the Cannabis Act and regulations. I don't think we'll see what we heard report until the first quarter of next year. Following that, there will have to be discussions with where they want to go with this. Then they will have to publish proposed regulations maybe by the end of that year, followed by regulations maybe the year after that. That's if we see anything at all. It will be a long, drawn-out process, years.
Yes, exactly. Now, according to pharmacist Rahim Dali, he's a pharmacist at Hybrid Pharma, which is actually the only legal medical cannabis pharmacy in Canada. It's a necessary change that needs to happen. It definitely took a long time for the committee to get these recommendations out, but I think it's a safe way to approach it, and this is the next step. I really hope Canada makes the necessary adjustments and puts this into place sooner than later. The report goes on to say that the committee's recommendations also include calls for more research into CBD products, something that Rahim Dali, the pharmacist and medical cannabis consultant and CEO at Hybrid Pharma, a compound pharmacy and cannabis and wellness center near Ottawa, says he's excited about it.
He's excited about it.
Yeah.
I completely lost where you were on the story.
Yeah, that's right. The committee unanimously agreed that CBD is safe and tolerable for short-term use with a maximum of 30 days at doses of 20 milligrams per day to a maximum dose of 200 milligrams per day. This is only for oral administration for healthy adults, provided they discuss the use of all other medications and substance use with their pharmacist.
And the report notes a lack of research into how CBD can interact with other medications and into the long-term effects of very high doses of CBD. It's fair to say that everything they are talking about in regard to a lack of studies, a lack of data, anything, that they are playing it on the safe side, which is great. I'm obviously in agreement as a pharmacist that taking higher doses of CBD can affect the way other other drugs are metabolized. It can interact with other drugs. It can have side effects. So I think it's an appropriate way to go. There's a lot of fundamental research on how it works in the body, but there's not enough in-depth clinical evidence. And if we want to change doctors' minds, that's what we need to go after. And once you get large, randomized, controlled drug trials proving efficacy, this is where we can use massive changes in the way they prescribe.
Yeah. He agrees with NN on the expected timeline, noting that various regulatory agencies for pharmacists, like the Provincial Colleges of Pharmacists, the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada, and others, will also have to come up with their own guidelines for their members, such as if it should be sold behind the counter and how to provide proper oversight. He says that it's a necessary change that needs to happen. It definitely took a long time for the committee to get their recommendations out, but I think it's a safe way to approach it, and this is the next step. I really hope Canada makes the necessary adjustments and puts this into place sooner than later. Correct.
Yeah, and in addition to some CBD products potentially being sold through pharmacies, the committee's recommendation includes references to CBD for pets, namely dogs, with the guidance of a veterinarian. Sarah Silcox, a veterinarian and the president and director of the Canadian Association of Veterinary Cannabinoid Medicine, welcomes the recommendations, even if she would like to see them go further.
Yeah, the CAVCM has been eagerly awaiting the release of the advisory committee's recommendations and is pleased to see that they have acknowledged the growing body of evidence that shows both the safety and efficacy of CBD-dominant cannabis products for dogs, according to Silcox. She goes on to say that their recommendations to limit this to dogs with arthritis reflects the focus of the majority of published clinical studies. Unfortunately, the more limited studies on both safety and efficacy for other species and conditions were not found robust enough to make a recommendation, but this is a good first step.
Yeah, got to start somewhere. The subcommittee members agreed that there was only sufficient safety evidence for CBD use in dogs, specifically when administered at very low doses between 0.2 and 2 milligrams orally twice daily. Silcox says she wants to see more research into similar approaches for other animals. There's no doubt that the vast majority of recent studies have focused on dogs, so the committee would have to have numerous studies in canines to support their recommendation. While we have seen clinically that a wide range of other species can benefit tremendously from cannabis, we simply do not yet have the published studies to examine the short and long-term safety in these species.
Yeah, she says that while all mammals have endocannabinoid systems, we do know that there can be interspecies differences. Different species can react somewhat differently, require different dosing, and may have variations in their psychological testing or physiological testing with the use of cannabinoids. Before making a formal recommendation to allow products marketed to other species, it will no doubt be important for those unknowns to be more fully investigated.
Raj Grover, president and CEO of High Tide Inc., which owns several popular CBD brands, shares the optimism of Silcox. We are encouraged by the steps being taken by Health Canada, following in the footsteps of the United Kingdom and Australia, to create a regulatory pathway for non-prescription CBD products so that Canadians and their pets can get access to reputable CBD products they can trust. Health Canada is inviting interested parties to provide input on the development of potential regulatory pathway that would permit CBD as a medicinal ingredient in certain health products for human use. Regulated under the Food and Drugs Act would not require a prescription. This initiative is set out in Health Canada's forward regulatory plan. Any future regulatory proposals for health products containing CBD will follow regulatory consultation procedures.
That's right. Yeah, but it's it'll get to the point where people would be able to go to, it depends on how they want to dispense it, but you could just walk into maybe the health section at the grocery store and pick up some CBD topical.
And I know I don't have so much experience with the CBD with dogs, but I do have some experience with cannabis use in dogs, oral use. Obviously, they're not smoking it. But I had a dog with really, really bad joints, and she had no problem at all after ingesting a very, very small amount of cannabis oil. She would be fine for the day. And we gave her that for years.
Yeah,
One drop.
One drop. Keep going.
One drop in her food, water. She was fine for the day. She didn't. I shouldn't say she never had a problem. I mean, she still had arthritis and things, but she could bear it. She could move. She could walk around.
Yeah, correct. Made her life quality of life go up.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, and Jay over there at Ollie Dog, he'll tell you the same thing. And they've got a product there. He's got that. You always, and as everybody says, you got to have that little bit of THC in there. Otherwise, you're taking the wheel off the trailer, right? Trailers still go down the road, but not quite as good, as they say. All right, on to our next story, also from Strachan. Headline says, The Good Weed Board, Part 1. Weed board? What's a weed board, Glenn?
Good weed's hard to find. That's what the old heads used to say. Not much has changed today, except back in the day, it was easy to tell when you found some because there was transparency. Back then, you could look at the buds before purchasing. You could smell the buds. In fact, with the right connection, you could even grab a bud and snap it in half, which I've done 100 times. Consumers understand which quality factors mattered the most, while growers and dealers had to stand behind their product face to face with the person that might purchase it.
Now everything has changed. Regulatory cannabis is an entirely different beast. Instead of growers and dealers, we have producers and retailers. It's not a person-to-person type of game anymore. Now it's a CBG game, an analytics game, a marketing game. There is no transparency. Everybody claims to be the leader in craft cannabis, selling today's hottest fire. Yet most of the products on the market are subpar. Consumers routinely get tricked as they predominantly shop for higher numbers on the label instead of better quality inside the bag.
Yeah. Back in the day, we used to grade cannabis in 4 different categories. Good cannabis was rated 4 A's. Decent cannabis was 3 A's. Discount cannabis was AA. And bunk weed was A. Just like today, the vast majority of flower available on the market back then was dubs and trips. Rarely did anything ever reach the glory of quad status. The ones that did reach quad status were always special. They deserve to be hunted after. They deserve to be remembered.
I've always loved good weed. Hash is delicious. I'll even indulge in an instance dab every so often. But good weed rolled into a joint is my favorite way to consume it. I enjoy all different kinds of weed, different aromas, different flavors. I like to examine the finer details. Over the years, I've learned that the only way to know if cannabis is good or not is to break it apart and smoke it. And from my experience, if the cannabis isn't good, then it isn't worth smoking.
It's absolutely true. Other people like good cannabis too, yet with the structure of distribution and packaging, good cannabis from the regulated industry can be even harder to find than before. So I've refined the old school grading system to meet the needs of today's consumers. The new version has evolved from 4 tiers into a 100-point scale. I'd call it the OG rating guide. To be considered good cannabis, take a 4A status. A product must score at least 80 out of 100 points. As the regulated industry started opening up for business in Canada, I put the OG rating guide to the test. It took a while for anything to reach good cannabis status. At first, it seemed like every store I walked into recommended something from the same group of producers that claimed to be craft, but only really cared about the bottom line. Every time I opened the package with hope, every time I put out the first joint with disappointment. The products lacked vibrancy and appeal. Most importantly, they lacked flavor and potency. It wasn't long before I decided to go back to the old way of sourcing flower. I think a lot of people have experienced this when New Brunswick opened their cannabis stores. They were basically selling crap that nobody wanted.
The older stuff had been sitting in the warehouse waiting to go to market.
Yeah, they didn't get a chance to destroy that stuff.
Yeah, Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. But as time went by, craft producers entered the regulated space. Eventually, I decided to give the market another chance. One day, I strolled into a store at Cook Street Village. It was a Trees cannabis store, one of the original chains to boom in Victoria during the dispensary days. I asked for the best quality dried cannabis product. The bartender recommended I try something from Simple Bear Organic. They had this sour SKS in stock at $52.49 for 3.5 grams. I almost
Jesus
walked out of the
Christ.
store.
I would have walked out of the store.
But I was in a pinch, he says, and I needed a smoke, so he went for it.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. The sour
This-
SKS came in a small all-peak glass container. The package data on the label read March 15. I was making the purchase on May the 22nd, so I crossed my fingers and hoped the buds inside would still be fresh. As I cracked open the jar and peeled back the seal, they were immediate signs the weed was good. My previous regulated purchases that had smelled like hay were fine. A rich aroma of zesty dough wafted out of the jar. The buds inside were small, but as I started chopping them up with my scissors, I was impressed by the density and overall structure.
I rolled a half-gram joint and sparked it up. As expected, the burn was clean. The flavor was full. The joint tasted like cookies mixed with orange citrus. I was reminded of an old GCS cut crossed with Jack Herer. It was by far the best weed I'd ever sampled on the regulated market. My rating was 82 out of 100. There's a good picture, and it looks like pretty good bud.
Looks frosty in the picture, that's for sure.
Yeah, it would be months before I would find another batch of good regulated cannabis. The next time I was in Calgary, Alberta, I had heard good things about a producer named Joy Botanicals. Eventually, I tracked down a 3.5 gram offering of their Cake Crasher. Just like the sour CKS, the Cake Crasher product was also packaged in an opaque glass container. When I opened the jar, the buds appeared dense and colorful. The primary color of the buds was a lighter shade of green, which for me has always been a common indicator of quality. As I broke up the buds, a pleasant, fruity aroma filled the air. I rolled up a joint and sparked it up.
Yep, because good cannabis always wants to be lit. Cake Crasher loves the flame. The smoke was clean and smooth. The ash was light colored and stayed intact at the top of the joint. Those are signs that the grower took care of in producing the product. The flower was delicious too, sweet and gassy like soda pop. It reminded me of wedding cake cut from the traditional market. He gives it a rating of 83 out of 100. And there's some pictures of some buds.
Good looking bud again.
Yeah, after the Cake Crasher, he was searching for some more good stuff. Next up was a product from Dunn Cannabis, a micro producer in BC. Dunn had managed to transition from the traditional market and was excited to try one of its regulated offerings for the first time. So he grabbed a bag of 3.5 gram of their super or secret mints.
From the moment I opened the jar, it was apparent that the secret mints would be a pleasure to burn. The buds were squishy and covered with trichomes. There was a sweet mint aroma as I broke them apart, like the ice cream, but with a mix of skunk and pine bursting from the inner layers near the stem. The buds displayed all the traits of Kush-dominant cultivar. The first joint burned so well that I immediately lit up another one. I even went back to the store for a few more jars. My rating is 81 out of 100. This one's got a less rating, but he sounds more excited about it.
Yeah. By the end of 2021, the reviewer community was abuzz about a product from Organic Craft called Platinum Grapes. It says I had only good times about this Okanagan Valley-based micro producer, so I went out searching for a jar but couldn't find any at first. I had to settle for a 3.5 gram of their Lilac Diesel.
As I cracked open the jar, I was reminded of a very floral version of sour diesel from the traditional market. Just like sour D, the buds appeared fluffy, but busted up into more than expected. As I like a good sour D, these buds love to burn, slow and even, with a lemon citrus aroma and an earthly berry aftertaste. This is the ideal kind of cannabis to smoke while being active. My rating, 80 out of 100. That's all for part 1. I hope you have enjoyed reading about these products as much as I enjoyed smoking them. Next column, part 2, showcase more products from the Good Weed Board. Keep an eye out for them. Part 1 red score of 83. Happy blazing. This guy's a good writer. I enjoy that.
Well, just so you know, you can see down here on the bottom at the very end, he has been grading cannabis for 20 years.
Wow. Yep.
So, if he's been grading for 20 years, he's got to think he's got an idea that he knows what he's talking about.
He's been reading cannabis for 20 years, and he's good, right? He's got a little comedy in there and some serious parts. Yeah. It was a joy to read that.
Well, there you go. Now you can go to the store and look for some of those strains. See if you agree with them. Yeah. All right. It's time for a break and time to pay some bills. Glenn and I will be right back in about 3 minutes and 43 seconds. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Hi folks, Scott from stfattiesday.com here, and we're absolutely stoked to tell you about our brand new program called Pass the Peace Pipe and our partnership with Legacy 420 out of Tyndonega. We are absolutely proud to be partners with these people. They are an amazing group that have helped so many people with their amazing cannabis medicinal products. And we are working together to gather funds to build the first ever Indigenous specific opioid addiction center here in the Bay of Quinte area on Tyndonega land. So we need your help. We need you to repost this video and go to our GoFundMe campaign, because on this October 17th, St. Fatty's Day, we are going to be starting the campaign where we pass the peace pipe from one side of the country to another to unite our country, to gather awareness, but most importantly, funds to build opioid addiction centers across the nation, one build at a time.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone.
The only way to go.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net. And we're back, and we're bringing you 4 more cannabis stories as well. Don't forget, we got our mushy moment still to come, and it's a very important article story for sure, news-wise. There's no doubt about that, right, Glenn?
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
All right. Yes, exactly. Okay, up next from Mugglehead Magazine, we've got Southern Glazers becomes exclusive distribution partner for Tilray.
A prominent American alcohol distributor with a long history dating back to the early 1900s will now be assisting a cannabis conglomerate with its CBD beverage distribution endeavors. On Thursday, Tilray Brands Inc. announced that its Fresh Hemp Foods Inc. division had signed a distribution contract with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Tilray states that the new agreement will provide the company with direct access to Southern Glazers' distribution network capable of reaching a broad range of consumers.
Oh, gotta scroll down. Tilray is an international company with a variety of cannabis subsidiaries, including Good Supply, a producer of pre-rolls, flour, concentrates, and vapes. Chowie Wowie, a multi-flavor edibles company in Broken Coast, a brand solely focused on producing high-grade cannabis flour. Yeah, Chowie Wowie.
I like that name. Southern Glazers Wine and Spirit is the largest U.S. alcoholic beverage wholesaler with distribution operations in 44 states. Tilray claims that the new strategic agreement between the companies will allow it to develop a U.S. CBD beverage catalog within familiar retail channels, transitioning the drink category out of the fringe and into the mainstream. The agreement helps Tilray uniquely position itself to enter the multi-billion-dollar adult beverage category with a non-alcoholic CBD beverage alternative for consumers who want to relax and unwind, said Jared Simon, president of the Tilray Wellness and Fresh Hemp Foods divisions.
Yeah, they say that they are also excited to be able to utilize the most knowledgeable CBD sales team in the industry, they say, and be part of Southern Glazers' successful Proof e-commerce platform, allowing retailers to access Tilray CBD drink catalog at any time. So there you go.
I like that they have a big distributor, but I kind of disappointed that it's an alcohol company.
Yeah,
that's my own personal disappointment. You know, I think it's good that the distribution network will get them in almost everywhere.
Yeah. All right, you ready for this next headline?
Yes.
All right, there we go. From the Fresh Toast. Selling weed without a license? Trump thinks you should get the death penalty. I went, what?
Wow. If any country has a drug problem.
I read it right away when I read that headline. And obviously you did too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just, that's more par for the course for Trump, I think, you know.
It's
if any country has a drug problem, the presence of illegal drug pushers is merely a symptom of a bigger issue. Death penalty is never the answer. In a speech he delivered last week in Vegas, Nevada, former President Mr. Trump said that the U.S. should replicate the drug policies of China, where drug dealers face the death penalty after quick trials. He discussed drastic measures in which he believes are the solution for law and order in the country, praising China's preferred method of governance. The penalty should be very, very severe. If you look at countries throughout the world, the ones that don't have a drug problem are the ones that institute a very quick trial death penalty sentence for drug dealers.
There's the video of it right there.
Yeah.
I'm not playing it, but there's the video of it. It sounds horrible, doesn't it? But you know what? That's the ones that don't have any problem. It doesn't take 15 years in court. It goes quickly, and you execute a drug dealer and you'll save 500 lives. He went on to say that the U.S. needed to crack down on illegal drug dealers with the strengthening of the police force, whom he thinks should be present in every corner. He goes on to say, it's terrible to say, but you take a look at every country in the world that doesn't have a problem with drugs. They have a very strong death penalty for people that sell drugs. His words, not mine.
He said you'll save 500 lives. Well, what about the response to COVID that costs hundreds of thousands of lives? And he's talking about we're going to execute people Oh, man, I just want to swear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
The United States is already well on the way to spreading cannabis legalization, as well as the legalization of therapeutic psychedelics, both of which have tremendous benefits for society, as proven by the data. But the opioid epidemic still haunts us, taking lives each day, and the death penalty is no solution to the opioid epidemic. If a country has a drug problem, the presence of illegal drug pushers is merely a symptom of a bigger issue. Most definitely it is.
Sure is. Death penalty is not the answer. For people like Trump who think it is, their moral compass is seriously off the radar. Nobody has the right to take someone's life from them. According to a 2018 report by Harm Reduction International, some 35 countries around the world still issue the death penalty for drug-related offenses. However, while these countries choose to use capital punishment, that doesn't mean that it's right or that it works. In fact, the trend is that more countries are working to abolish the death penalty for crimes, not just drug-related crimes. So if the U.S. decides to adopt such an extreme measure, it would go against the global trend. Besides, the countries that have these measures in place don't have any proof that it works in stopping the cycle of the illegal drug trade and the pushers behind them.
Most countries don't execute murderers, but now they're talking about executing drug dealers. Give me a break.
Yeah, you sell a bag to a friend, and you're a drug dealer. You're risking death penalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your eyes, you're a drug
Insanity and
dealer.
stupidity at the highest level.
Yeah, just
the stories that story made me mad.
We're not even done it yet.
Yeah. One also has to remember that in numerous cases, many people who have had no choice but to become pushers have only done so out of desperation. They're usually tricked or forced into going against the law, and oftentimes they are only teenagers. It's simply not fair to rob a teenager of the right to live. They're not the ones the law should be after. I think. Take the case of Syahri Zani of Malaysia, who was 19 years old when he was convicted of drug trafficking back in 2003. He was found with 622 grams of cannabis on him and was then given the death penalty for 2009, with many fighting for his life. Thankfully, Amnesty International's Malaysia was effective in their campaigns for his clemency, and instead was sent to prison, where he is scheduled to be released in 2030. So
622 grams is like a friggin' pound and a half of cannabis.
Yeah, and they're going to kill him for that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Like, it's outrageous.
Yeah,
pound and a half of cannabis, and they want to kill people. Like, what the?
Yeah.
I gotta get that right button there. Malaysia doesn't disclose their execution statistics, though according to experts, more than half of the death sentences in the Asian country have been due to drug convictions. However, Iran and Malaysia were once two countries that were prime supporters of the death penalty, yet both countries have already made efforts necessary to minimize having to go to this extreme for drug-related measures. It makes no sense for a country supposedly as progressive as the United States start going in the opposite direction. Instead, we should be looking at measures that are always humane and evidence-based. More importantly, any measure should seek to address the root cause of any public health crisis. Policies are needed to ensure that marginalized communities are always protected while spreading awareness and information on harm reduction policies. Treatment and medications for those who are addicted to drugs need to be provided, but these things simply do not happen in cultures that use the drug penalty to punish I guess
it's death penalty.
With the death penalty, like just like
I don't even know what to say to that.
I know.
At the end of the day, capital punishment goes against the values of a democratic system. There are many things that are unfair, unjust, and inhumane about it, but the United States and many other countries, what makes this worse is that it's carried out on people based on their wealth status. It's far more common for marginalized people, people of color, and the poor to be executed compared to rich white people, which never happens. Rich white people don't get executed. Only poor people get executed. That's the way it works. Besides going after
death penalty will only waste resources, law enforcement, taxpayer money, and more. There is no real benefit for public health and will not even stop violent crime. Experts know that. The real solution to end violent crime is to provide more employment, work on a better, more lucrative economy, increasing the police force.
And the data's there. Based on the FBI's uniform crime reports, states that have the death penalty have a higher murder rate compared to states that don't. It does nothing but fool the voting public that the government is indeed working on reducing violent crime. But these laws really do nothing to protect you from criminals. Nobody deserves to die by the hand of another man, and most especially not the law.
Killing people for cannabis laws is just...
in my younger days,
somebody who wants to be a former president and wanting to be president again, and supporting the death penalty, like do his followers know that he wants to probably be killed?
He's supported by most of the Southern religions. And those religions now are basically advocating for the death penalty for someone who sells a joint. Give me a break. Yeah, that's not a religion. Anybody who supports this fool is not religious at all. Sorry.
I agree.
I know we're not a political show. I know.
Yeah, I know exactly. I know where you're going. I know where you're coming from. I know what you're saying.
Maybe we need another show, a political show.
No. Up next, from MJ Biz Daily, the California Cannabis Consumption Lounge is poised for takeoff. All right, lounges. We
got a good story, I hope. A long-awaited debut of sit-down cannabis consumption lounges throughout California appears to have arrived. The industry experts predict these venues will expand exponentially in the next few years. That would mark a big change. To date, the uptick in cannabis lounges has been modest in California and across the nation, slowed by the coronavirus pandemic, of course. The lounges currently open in California are clustered primarily in San Francisco and Oakland. Most are cannabis smoking rooms, but several lounges are finally getting the green light from other municipalities in Southern California and the Central Valley.
As a result, the number of cannabis consumption lounges is expected to double or even triple over the next year or two from the dozen or so currently operating. New lounges are slated to open in National City in San Diego County, Coalinga in Central Valley, Port Hueneme in Ventura County, Desert Hot Springs and Palm Springs in Riverside County. And Desert Hot Springs, in fact, went one step further, giving the thumbs up to cannabis entertainment facilities and retail sales at hotels.
Oh, awesome. Until now, the slow growth in consumption lounges in California and across the country has thrown into question a business model that many have hoped would generate additional revenue. Consumption lounges are a crucial part of pushing the industry forward and normalizing cannabis use, said Lauren Fontaine, co-director of the Artist Tree, a West Hollywood cannabis retailer that recently opened the Studio Lounge. West Hollywood has been among the leaders in California's consumption lounge industry outside of the Bay Area, and city officials authorized 16 licenses in 2018, 8 for edibles only, 8 for smoking, vaping, or ingestion.
So far, only one of these venues, the Studio Lounge, is open for business. The Artist Tree, located on San Monica Boulevard, opened the Studio Lounge on April the 20th, upstairs from the store. The venue is located in the heart of bustling commercial district of bars, restaurants, and cannabis shops, just south of the famed Sunset Strip. It's the city's second consumption lounge to open. The first, the original Cannabis Cafe, closed at the onset of the pandemic and hasn't reopened.
Oh. On a recent comedy night at the Studio Lounge, patrons packed the room. Some rented glass bongs on the patio terrace, others sat inside puffing pre-rolls. Customers used tablets or other bongs, pre-rolls, and other cannabis products. Events were held throughout the week: live music, sound baths, painting classes, yoga instruction, drag queen brunches. There's no place in the world other than West Hollywood where you can have this crazy drag show. People smoking, drag queens smoking, huge blunts. The energy in the place is really great, Fontaine said.
She added that we want to give people a brand new perspective on cannabis and what it can be, and really change people's minds about it and who might be reluctant or are scared or hesitant to have this in the neighborhood. A few miles east of the artistry on La Brea Avenue in West Hollywood, Everett Smith has his own lounge dubbed the Presidential Suite. The lounge operates under a very different business model than the 16 currently permitted in West Hollywood.
It's a mixed-use property that includes a New York-style pizzeria, a space designed as a subway train, and a private outdoor cannabis-friendly consumption area that features double-deck patio seating, a DJ booth, and a VIP area. It's essentially a cannabis-friendly event space. The venue's not licensed for cannabis retail, so the Presidential Suite can't sell cannabis products. That sounds a little, I don't know, strange.
Well, that's the same way our lounges were when they were around.
Yeah,
you couldn't buy your cannabis there. You just brought your own, right?
Yeah. Now it's legal. I think they should be able to sell it at the venue.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. They have to get the lounges regulations in place, and yeah, why not be able to sell cannabis products in the cannabis lounge, just like you sell alcohol in an alcohol location?
Exactly.
Yeah, it just makes sense to me. So, I mean, it makes sense to a lot of people, I'm sure. Other the ones that are writing the regulations, it takes time. Yeah. But with legal destination also provides operational benefits, including on-site food and beverage sales and the potential to serve alcohol at some point. Now, according to Smith, the co-founder and CEO of the Presidential Cannabis, he says, we're still waiting on our beer and wine license. Once we get that, I think we can really start marketing out.
I find that weird, though. They're waiting on a beer and wine license, but they're not allowed to sell cannabis.
Yeah.
And it's a cannabis place. It's so strange.
I know.
The lounge is the latest venture of Smith's Los Angeles-based cannabis brand, Presidential Cannabis Co., which is one of the top-selling blunt and pre-roll brands in California. We've had a lot of interest in watch parties for shows and movies, album release parties, things like that, Smith said. We're still finding our way. The venue, which opened in February with a Super Bowl party, has hosted events for professional athletes, birthday celebrations, President's Day, Juneteenth, and of course, 420.
Yep. California's consumption lounges are bound to a litany of restrictions and far fewer allowances than the cannabis businesses, such as manufacturers or cultivars. For starters, applicants at the local level must secure property within approved zoning. At the state level, applicants must apply for retail permits, since specific consumption lounge licenses don't exist. The retail district carries significant ramifications, including a requirement that consumers must be in control of their own cannabis use and or dosage.
That means cannabis-infused entries and drinks prepared the same way as in traditional restaurants are prohibited under state law. Nothing can be sold in a retail store except merchandise related to your brand, ancillary products for use and cannabis, Los Angeles attorney Courtney Karen said. That presents challenges for lounge operators, particularly those not integrated with a large cannabis retailer, Fontaine said. Because we opened our retail store first, we have that customer base and income. So it's okay if the lounge isn't a huge additional moneymaker at this point, she said. The studio lounge, like other consumption venues, must source food and beverages from third-party providers and essentially deliver them to patrons in the lounge. That means lost potential revenue in every sale. So they're not even allowed to make their own food?
No, not according to that. Not even. No, you gotta. They'd have to come up. We could come up with an agreement with a couple of restaurants in the area, and maybe they that way. But yeah, and they can't make their own food.
What's wrong with having a kitchen? A licensing kitchen,
it's the licensing, the way the things done because they had to go under retail.
But you can have a beer and a steak
for lounges. They got to create licensings for lounges.
This is a place like a restaurant where you can't get beer, but you can bring beer. You can't buy food, but you could get food delivered. Basically, they've licensed people to have a business that doesn't do anything. Aside from giving you a place to consume. That's what they're doing. They give you a place to consume, and there's nothing else.
Yeah, obviously they need some regulation updates.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I'd say so. They say the studio lounge, like other consumption venues, must source the food and beverage. On-site cannabis is priced the same as the artistry downstairs. So at a $60 eighth of cannabis flower on the high end of the menu can easily attain a party of four or more. Some pre-rolls cost $8. So where's this stuff being sold? The challenge is, how do you make money off the lounge model if you're not selling food or other beverages? We've been experimenting with a lot of different ways to make money, they say. And I know that was something going on in Toronto with the lounges. Some of them weren't selling any food whatsoever.
Yeah, you have to make some money somehow, or why have a business? Like there is no business if you can't make money, obviously.
Yeah, well, I know I've talked to one past lounge owner, and they said that there is no money in lounges. But
there would be if the government allowed you to make money.
Well, it would obviously help. That's for sure.
They're not closing the steakhouse on the corner because they're serving beer, right? And they're allowing to serve beer and food at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Continue on with the story.
Karen questioned the logic behind consumption lounge restrictions. Why would you want to prohibit people from being able to purchase a beverage or food when they're consuming a controlled substance? She asked. Karen, the founder of Adamant Law Group in Santa Monica, guided the artistry through its lounge application and approval process in West Hollywood. And she recently earned a lounge permit for a spot she co-owns in the Central Valley town of Lindsay with retailer Elevate. Within a month, we'll be breaking ground there, which would put us around January opening, Karen said.
When the San Diego suburb National City approved its cannabis ordinance last year, it set aside one of 6 licenses for a consumption lounge. Councilman Jose Rodriguez was swayed by the promise of new local jobs, added tourism, community investment, and enhanced safety. He would rather see consumers in a safe place where folks feel comfortable just hanging out rather than smoking in public spaces or cars. He's also running for mayor. He says that let's just try to have a product be safe that is legalized in a safe place.
Makes sense. Cannabis taxes and related application and licensing fees are expected to generate $2 million to $3 million in annual revenue for the coastal city. Lounges have been zoned in the commercial tourist district. Licenses should be granted by August or September, Rodriguez said. The idea is to have them up and running hopefully within 6 months to a year after that.
Oh, another long wait. Excuse me. Wow, there you go. Well, talking about lounges in California, and we lost a lot of our lounges here in Ontario, and we know BC's dealing with trying to get exemptions and stuff in lounges, and where else do they have lounges of all places? According to High Times, cannabis cafes emerge in post-legalization Thailand.
Imagine that.
Imagine that, eh?
Reuters reports this week that several such cannabis cafes have opened in the capital city of Bangkok since Thailand decriminalized cannabis in June, becoming the first country in Asia to do so. When the government removed cannabis from its list of banned substances earlier this summer, officials were adamant that they were not legalizing recreational cannabis use. It's a no, the health minister, Autan Charnakaval, told CNN when asked if recreational use would be permitted. We still have regulations under the law that control the consumption, smoking, or use of cannabis product in a non-productive ways. Non-productive ways?
Well,
Weird.
Look, 2 months after they legalized cannabis in Thailand, they have cannabis cafes.
Yeah, imagine that.
2 months. All right, not years. 2 months. When the government removed cannabis from its list of banned substances earlier this year, some officials were adamant they were not legalized recreational use. It's a no. Yeah, okay, you read that. But that's exactly how it has played out. The new law has led to an explosion in its recreational use, according to Reuters. Something that government officials concerned about negative effects on health and productivity often linked to the uncontrolled use of cannabis and have respectively tried to discourage.
Wow. Okay. The law does not cover recreational cannabis use, and so tourism promotion is focused on medical aspects. The National Tourism Authority's Deputy Governor, Shiri Kapan Chusamut, said, as quoted by Reuters, according to Reuters, a parliamentary committee is now debating a bill to regulate cannabis use that is expected to finalize in September and could impact the cannabis cafes. The pushback against the way the new policy is being interpreted has caused some confusion, with authorities resorting to issuing piecemeal regulations such as banning public smoking of cannabis and its sale to under 20s, Reuters reported.
The report in June, CNN reported in June that the new law meant that it is no longer a crime to grow and trade cannabis and hemp products or use parts of the plant to treat illnesses, and that cafes and restaurants can also serve cannabis-infused food and drinks, but only if the products contain less than 0.2% THC. Yeah, 0.2. That's right. Yeah, hemp.
Yeah.
We have also emphasized using cannabis extractions and raw materials for medical purposes and for health, Kavarkal told CNN at the time. They have never once been a moment that we would think about advocating people to use cannabis in terms of recreation or use it in a way that could irritate others.
Thailand will promote cannabis policies for medical purposes. If tourists come for medical treatment or come for health-related products, then it's not an issue. But if you think that you want to come to Thailand just because you heard that cannabis or marijuana is legal, or come to Thailand to smoke joints freely, that's wrong, he said. Don't come. We won't welcome you if you just come to this country for that purpose. Tourists have not heeded his warning, however. And Reuters this week spotlighted one such cafe, RG420, located in Khao San, an area of Bangkok popular with backpackers.
RG420's owner, or I'm not even getting into there, told Reuters that his cafe has had hundreds of visitors every day. Europeans, Japanese, Americans, they're looking for Thai sativa. Cannabis and tourism are a match, he says. The new cannabis laws have been fraught with controversy since it was acted earlier this summer. Last month, more than 850 doctors in Thailand came together to speak out against cannabis decriminalization, warning that it posed dangers to young people.
Cannabis was removed from the Public Health Ministry's narcotic list on June 9th, but no policies have been launched to control the use of cannabis for personal pleasure. A spokesman for the group of physicians said, "This lack of direction makes cannabis more accessible to children and teenagers," which we've heard this over and over and over again. All they have to do is look to Canada and see all the teenagers and all the little kids using cannabis everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I see them hanging out in the street corner out here in the country too.
Yeah, it's been horrible since legalization here.
Yeah, exactly. And the reports are out saying that the youth use is not going up, the elders' use is going up.
I think people over 60 are the main driver, and it's medical,
Medical. And so if you're going to go to Thailand and those lounges or the cafes there, I would assume on that end that they're there for the tourists to maybe get medication while they're there.
Makes sense.
That makes sense to me. All right. Well, you know what time it is? That's right. Time for our mushy moment. And this is very important. Pay attention. We're going to read through this really closely. All right. According to the National Post, Canadian patients are fighting for psilocybin access, sue the federal government.
And this landmark case is going to legalize psychedelics in Canada. 8 Canadians have filed a charter challenge against the Government of Canada and the Ministry of Health regarding patient access to psilocybin and psilocybin therapy. The plaintiffs, which include 7 patients and 1 healthcare practitioner, are arguing that the current modes of accessing psilocybin are insufficient and a violation of Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which guarantees the right to life, liberty, and security of the person.
It's a similar argument to the landmark court case R versus Parker, which led to the Canada's first medical cannabis laws. That's right. The challenge is supported by Therasville, a BC-based nonprofit that has fundraised to cover legal fees and has previously worked with each of these plaintiffs to help them secure legal access to psilocybin, though not always successfully. Therasville's CEO Spencer Huxwell says this is the landmark case that is going to legalize psychedelics in Canada.
And currently, there are 3 ways to legally access psilocybin or magic mushrooms for medical purposes. The Charter Challenges argues that each of these pathways, obtaining a personal exemption from the Minister of Health under subsection 56(1) of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, working with a doctor to obtain an authorization through Canada's Special Access Program, or enrolling in a clinical trial, do not adequately serve the needs of patients. Several of the plaintiffs have terminal diagnoses, including Thomas Hartle, who was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer in 2016.
Hartle, an IT specialist and father of 2 from Saskatoon, became a medical cannabis consumer shortly after his cancer diagnosis, trying the plant for the first time at the age of 48. If it works, I will use it, Hartle told Post Media in 2020 as he was waiting to hear back on the status of his Section 56 application. He says that's my whole litmus test. Cannabis, I felt, was a very effective tool. I believe that psilocybin will also be an effective tool.
And Hartle, with assistance from Therasville, applied for the exemption in June 2020. Health Canada then requested more information, which was provided in 2 more supplementary letters in July 2020. As of August 2020, Hartle was granted the CDSA exemption, valid for 1 year. He underwent psilocybin-based psychotherapy shortly after. In doing so, he became the first Canadian to legally consume psilocybin for medical purposes. He reported a significant decrease in his anxiety and distress, improvements that lasted several months and came without the side effects of pharmaceutical medications.
He says, I have had anxiety for so long. I had sort of forgotten what it feels like to not have it, he said a week after the therapy session. To experience the lack of anxiety I've had this week is beyond words. It's amazing. I have no idea how long this particular benefit will last, but so long as it's here, it's really, really amazing and good.
Hartle underwent psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy 2 more times before his exemption expired, according to the court filing. Hartle's cancer has spread throughout his abdominal cavity. He has tumors in 51 locations, 47 of which are undetectable through medical scans, leaving doctors unable to offer a prognosis about how much time he may have left. Though he experienced months of relief following each of his psilocybin therapy sessions, his exemption has now expired and he no longer has timely means of accessing psilocybin. In October of last year, he submitted an application for a second S56 exemption. He has yet to hear back because they're not. No rush for this guy. No rush.
No rush. The guy's only got cancer. He's he's got tumors all over his body. What's the?
Yeah, take your time.
Why in the hell do these things have to be?
Well, hopefully this court case will put an end to this crap.
Yeah. Making patients, when you get a prescription, you have to go back every year, see your doctor. They're making us do that with the cannabis.
Yeah.
These people are dying.
Yeah.
They can't wait.
Yeah. They just take their time. It doesn't matter.
Not right. It's not right. Though he experienced months of cable, other plaintiffs in the challenge have pursued psilocybin therapy illegally after being denied an exception or waiting for more than a year without a response. Waiting more than a year without a response?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Hartle, several of the plaintiffs have terminal cancer diagnosis, while others have conditions that include major depression disorder, anxiety, and addiction. Another one of the plaintiffs has had 4 separate bouts of sepsis and lives in a chronic pain. I've had a friend die of that lately. They are seeking relief from years-long intractable migraines, a condition for which Health Canada believes there is inadequate evidence to support the use of psilocybin, according to the court filings. The patient has pursued prescription pharmaceuticals, including Oxycontin, morphine, fentanyl, and nerve blockers, to no effect.
The hoops that patients with cancer need to jump through to get access to their medicine is barbaric, says Harkswell. We'll look back at this and just see it as barbarism. Therasil says it has previously initiated 3 court challenges against the government, all of which were resolved in favor of the patients before court proceedings began. Harkswell says over the past 2 years, the nonprofit has been overwhelmed by applications from Canadians who need help accessing care. The organization's wait list now stands at more than 800 patients. Sarah Sills has had to focus largely on patients with terminal cancer. In an effort to support the implementation of proper medical regulations, the organization sent a 165-page document to Health Canada last year, an undertaking that Harkswell estimated would have cost the agency hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete on its own.
For 2 years, we've done absolutely everything in our power to play nicely with the government, they say. If we get this, nobody in Canada will ever have to go to court again for access to psilocybin. No more people will be dying waiting for access. This is what we've been working towards. The statement of claim also argues that a framework for constitutionality viability access to psilocybin already exists in the context of cannabis law.
In 2000, the Ontario court ruled that Toronto resident Terry Parker, who had suffered epileptic seizures since his teen and found relief through cannabis, could grow the plant legally and threw out previous charges of possession and trafficking. The court agreed that the absolute prohibition of cannabis by the CDSA contravenes Section 7 of the Charter. Liberty includes the right to make decisions of fundamental personal importance, including the choice of medication to alleviate the effects of an illness with life-threatening consequences, the court ruled. Deprivation of this right must also accord with the principles of fundamental justice. The choice of medication to alleviate the effects of an illness with life-threatening consequences is such a decision.
Exactly. They've already ruled on it.
Yeah.
That case led to the creation of Canada's first medical cannabis laws, and Hawkswell believes the current charter challenge should follow a similar path. This is a near replica of Parker. The outright prohibition of psilocybin is against our charter, and that is made evident with cannabis.
He says they're hoping for a resolution as quickly as possible, ideally within the next month. This is about people getting access to their medicine, and this is why we're targeting Jean-Yves Duclos. He's the one who's being sued here because he's the one whose responsibility it is to fix this, he says. Harkswell adds that the previous Minister of Health, Patty Hadju, who granted the vast majority of exemptions over the past 2 years, displayed a level of empathy that has been absent under Duclos' leadership. He has not displayed the same level of compassion or courage, says Harkswell, but we're hoping that we can help him.
Yes.
Nice way to put it. We're hoping that we can help him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just crazy, man. It is. They're right. It's medical cannabis all over again. It's going to take the same path.
And I think the court has to see the writing on the wall already. The government has to see it because they're going to win this case.
I think they do. I think they do see it on the wall, but they're not.
They don't care.
Reacting quickly enough or as good enough as required, because they started that program. You know, there's a Section 56, and then there's that supplementary program there, or the clinics. But yet, that's not enough. Obviously, if they've got almost 1,000 people on a waiting list, in order to be able to get access to this medication for patients,
that's a waiting list just for a company to represent you to try and get access to medication. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, and still no guarantee that you're going to get it. And as these early people are finding out, they're waiting, and it's so it's about time they're taking them to court. Deal with it. Let's get it in gear.
I wonder why they didn't do it as a class action. Seems to be enough.
Well, you can. There's they're fighting the constitutional laws on it, right? So they're not suing them for monetary purposes. They're suing them for access. So they'll find that the laws are wrong and force the government to change. In the Parker decision, the government was given 12 months by the courts in order to change the cannabis laws. And if the laws didn't change, then cannabis became legal without any regulations. And for those that were involved back then, the cannabis was actually legal because the government didn't meet that.
It was like a year and a half, something like that.
Year and a half. That's right. Cannabis was legal, no laws. It was just free, just like in Thailand, almost. And people actually got charges dropped because of that during that time. I know somebody who did. So, and that's what's going to happen here. Because they won't react. And if maybe the courts only give them 6 months. Who knows? But it's something that we're going to have to follow and keep on top of for sure.
Well, we do have the mushy moment now.
We do have the mushy moment. That's right. Exactly. All right. Other than that, you got anything else you want to mention before we leave?
Nope. All done for the day.
All done for the day. Get back to the garage. You get her finished off today. We'll get an update next week. That's our Reefer Report from the Legacy420.com news desk and for our buds at BMA Hydroponics, Camel for Lifestyle Shop, Dr. Buck CTS, as well as Legacy 420. We'd like to say thank you for watching and listening. And until next week, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. And don't kill anybody with cannabis. Oh
yeah, baby. That's lovely.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.